I was the associate director at Black Rep in charge of the theater programs. I was born in Seattle, Washington. I came to Providence for college. I worked at Black Rep from 2005 to 2009, I believe. Mm-hmm. I went to Brown and I majored in education studies and American civilizations. Yeah, we definitely earned a lot of awards for the theater work. I believe there was a Motif Awards were like the theater award in Providence at the time. We got a few of those. We got a lot of different grants and funding support for the theater work. I knew about Black Rep because of my time in college at Brown, and I lived in New York for a while after I went to college, but I would come back and visit Providence, go see shows at Black Rep. I knew Donald, and yeah, I was moving back to Providence, and I believe he was trying to convince me at the time to take over the education programs, and I was more interested in running the theater side of things. And I don't think I formally had to apply for the job. How did I get the job? This feels like so long ago. Donald and I worked it out. I don't know. Yeah. It was right after they moved into the new building, so they were expanding their staff a little bit. Yeah. I mean, a number of things. I think it was a young organization, and it's exciting as a young theater maker to have the opportunity to really make a big impact. I was getting a lot of responsibility. I was very young and getting to basically run a theater. I mean, Donald was running the full organization, but I was running the theater part of it, and that was kind of unheard of. That really appealed to me, and Donald was very, when he trusted someone and enjoyed collaborating with them, he was very, gave you a lot of space to create, and that was really exciting, to have that kind of ability to achieve the vision and in whatever way I thought made sense. Mm. That was really, really great, and I learned a lot from doing that. And it was a totally unique place. It was not like anywhere else. It was really intersectional before that was a thing. It was a place that had a lot of energy around it. It was a place that had a lot of joy and fun happening there, and it was a place with a lot of talent coming through. It was a place, just felt like a place with a lot of possibility, and that was extremely exciting. Hmm. So I was responsible for essentially planning and implementing the season of theater. So that included selecting the plays in collaboration with Donald. I mean, he had the final say on the curation of what we selected, but I was collaborating with him to do that. Then staffing all of the productions, so selecting directors, again in collaboration with Donald. Then mostly I was going forward and hiring designers, holding auditions, helping the directors to cast the shows, hiring technical staff, stage management, all that kind of thing, putting producerial duties, as well as the full complement of the administrative and marketing and development side of it as well. So because we didn't have, I guess later on we maybe had a marketing person, but in the beginning, I mean, looking at these brochures, I was definitely the person working with the graphic designer to create copy and approve layouts and figure out pricing and what we were gonna all of that stuff. So and writing press releases, so everything basically associated with theater, I was overseeing or hiring someone to do. Oh, they were all so great. A couple that were really close to my heart One was The Etymology of Bird, which was a world premiere of a play by Zakian Alexander, and a couple of reasons that was really profound for me. One was that there was a play about the shooting of a young black man by a cop, and there was actually, we had student matinees throughout the run, and one of the schools that was coming to the student matinees had students that were killed with gun violence, like the day before they were coming to the show or something, and it was just really a profound and disturbing confluence, and the cast was very young. They were college students mostly, because they were playing teenagers, they were playing high school students, and the way that they interfaced with the students from the school and were in conversation with them afterwards was really moving. And I still in touch with several of the young actors that were in that, and they're just doing really great things in the world, and so that's also a reason that I think about that production a lot. It was actually the students were very quiet during the play, and they were sort of sitting there, and we had a talk back afterwards. And I remember Jonathan Dent, the young actor that played the central role, basically like stepped forward and like started crying and started speaking to them very much from the heart, and then they started opening up and talking. And yeah, it was very much the power of theater to reach people and to affect healing, and it also sucked because that happened, and it keeps happening, and play is still as relevant as it was. The impact on artists in the Boston, Providence region, and particularly artists of color and black artists, was really significant. And I think some of that had to do just with the opportunity to work and to tell stories and to make art, and some of it had to do with the existence of an artistic home. We had a company, and we had really important conversations around the purpose and the mission of what we were doing together. We had we thought a lot about what our place was in the community and how we wanted to take up that responsibility. And so, that's not, I haven't found that since. I think that the opportunity to have an artistic home where you are really, really valued, and there's a lot of interest in collaborating with a company of artists to make the kind of place that feels important to all of them it's unusual, and it changes your experience being an artist to have something like that, because it's a hard profession. It's not always easy, and I don't think that Black Rep was like providing like substantive employment for actors in a way that was like, we did 3 shows per year. It's a little bit of a catch-22. We certainly, the mission and what was happening was incredibly profound, and it was always a central part of the mission of the organization, especially as it grew, to be equitable in terms of compensation, partially because that's, that fits with our values, and it's, if you're gonna be hiring mostly artists of color, it's even more important to pay them what they're worth, and so it was, that was a constant tension. And I think a lot of small theater companies and so-called culturally specific theater companies make ends meet by not paying artists, and Black Rep never did that. No. In one word. Innovative. He's always pushing the envelope. He's always thinking about what is the next thing, connecting disparate ideas. It's very associative. And he thinks, far out. He's interested in in ideas that are a little bit, you know, there as opposed to right here. So yeah, he's always trying to innovate, to make something new. I was really lucky to have him as a boss for a really formative part of my career. I mean, he's a really innovative, creative person who is really interested in pushing other people, getting the best ideas out of them. And also, as I said before, he gave me a lot of freedom and trusted me to create something, which was really really cool and really changed my life and changed my sense of what was possible for me to do. And I, you know, had such an amazing time kind of riding the Black Rep wave with him, building stuff, you know, making plays, talking about plays, create. I mean, I'm sitting here in front of all of these documents and just thinking about like all of the hours and hours and hours that we spent, you know, agonizing over each word and each piece of layout, and you know, that kind of collaborative experience is really important. And I think especially for a young female theater maker to have that level of responsibility and autonomy and creative control at that point in my career was really important. And it was always very, very clear to me that he trusted me and was interested in my aesthetic and my point of view. And he taught me a lot about, he planted a lot of the seeds of my current thinking around identity as well. I mean, I'm half Armenian, half Jewish. I came to Black Rep thinking about, you know, asking a lot of questions about how do I serve the vision that you're creating here, that's about an Afro-diasporic art form. And he was the first person to push me and ask me, like, why are you here? What does this mean to you? And thinking about connections between I mean, I have genocides on both sides of my history, Armenian and Jewish, and the cafe at Black Rep was called the Exodus Cafe, and you know, Exodus is a word that's used a lot in sort of, definitely in Jewish history, Armenian history. There was also an exodus out of a homeland, and these are huge human, you know, trans historical trauma themes, and it you know, it made me realize that there are these pieces of our history that are really connective, and I was able to learn a lot about myself, my personal history, my family, from being around Black Rep and making art there, and also to see, to have the opportunity to examine more about, like, as someone who's not Black in contemporary American life, you know, how do I participate in racism and anti-Blackness, and how do I perpetuate things that I'm interested in destroying, and what is my relationship to Black artists and Black art? How am I, like, consuming them rather than uplifting them sometimes? So it was really, I mean, you know, these are huge conversations that take so much time to have, and I was really lucky to get to have them every single day at work. You know, I'm not sure I can fully speak to that, because since the theater program was really the first one to go, I left Black Rep way before things started to kind of fall apart in a really visible way. So I didn't really know. Like, I mean, I knew that money was tight, but I mean, from my view, from working in theater organizations, that's just extremely common. Like, things are always tight, people do campaigns, do fundraising, you have emergencies, you miss payroll. I mean, unfortunately, this is the reality of the American theater, and particularly of theaters of color, unfortunately. So, yeah, I knew that it was not going well. I mean, we were slashing our theater budgets. I wanted to do all of this stuff, and we had to cut way back, and that, I was annoyed about that, I remember. But I'm not sure that I could tell you what happened or why it happened. I know that it was really heartbreaking, and it was sad, and I definitely didn't think that that the doors were gonna close. I never thought the doors would close. Donald was very, I am really grateful to him for how he dealt with me in that last leg of things, because he actually fired me.
Oh.
And it was totally out of the blue. I had no idea that it was coming. And he was just like, one day he was like, we need to talk. We went to a coffee shop and he fired me. And I was like, I was in a state of shock. And in retrospect, it was a really kind thing to do, because he spared me. Firing me was really, ultimately really great, because it was sort of like he shoved me out the door before the house collapsed. For me personally, what happened was it felt like I lost a home, I lost a child, it was incredibly painful, and it changed my sense of hope too. I think I felt so sure that it would be rescued, and something so good would not, ever be allowed to leave us, and that just isn't true. And that, so there's a kind of idealism, youthful idealism, I think, that I lost. At the same time, one of the last, I left Black Rap, or was fired in, I believe it was late November of 2008, and if you will recall, November of 2008 was an amazing time because Obama was elected, and so it was like, it also felt, it felt like maybe there was a reason for all of it. I think that its legacy lives on in the artists, for sure, especially the young artists. I was talking about Jonathan Dent, who is currently in a play at Shakespeare Theater in DC. Maggie Perkins, this is Maggie Perkins, that's Jonathan Dent. Maggie Perkins is doing a project with me in New York next week. Natalie, as I mentioned, Natalie Hirsch is the artistic director of a theater in New York. Fedna-Jaquette, who was also in Etymology of Bird, is currently in a play at the Public Theater off Broadway. These young artists really. There's another young woman, Charlie Yvonne Simpson, who I think she managed Neon Soul, our house band, and she also went to Brown, and she is like a playwright that's blowing up right now. It certainly impacted a generation of artists, for sure. And there are so many more Black arts organizations that have folded than that are still standing. And to some extent, I see the legacy of Black Rep as being part of a really tragic legacy of other Black arts organizations and other arts organizations of color or queer arts organizations that are providing something incredibly vital and are living on the razor's edge of existence in a society that is not particularly interested or invested in lifting up the stories of those communities. And I think, Black Rep made a huge impact on a lot of people, and it broke a lot of people's hearts.